Hi everyone, Jonathan here. Today, we're going to talk about alignment. What is it? Why is it important? And what to do if you can get it right.
First, we need to remember that in order to hold a handstand, we need to keep our weight over our base of support. We'll add one layer to it, and that's what I call the line of balance, which is simply a line that goes in the same direction as gravity and passes in the middle of your base of support. The more you can keep your body on that line, the more efficient your handstand will be. Proper alignment makes it so that every part of your body is placed straight atop another part of your body, that's placed atop another part of your body until it reaches the floor. This is called stacking. Here, I have two stacks, but clearly, one can support a lot more weight than the other. Here I have two dummies. They both have their center of gravity over their base of support, so they can both balance. However, if I push on their feet, they will support the weight differently. One will transmit the force straight into the ground. The other, however, will have leakage points and weaknesses, which will be the midsection and the shoulders. Another thing to note is that if I wanted to tilt them to one-arm handstand, one will stay square, but the other one will have a tendency to twist. It will go like this here.
Now, let's break it down body part by body part, starting with the very base.
The hands support all of your weight and are your main tool to control your balance. They should be placed about shoulder width, and the index finger should be pointing forwards or be slightly turned out. The fingers should be comfortably spread out, and it doesn't really matter whether you keep them straight or bend them a little bit, as long as they can stay rigid and offer good leverage to transmit the force from your wrists into the ground. Next up are the elbows. The elbows in general shouldn't be doing much more than stay locked out. Some people might not be able to fully lock out their elbows, while some others might be able to hyperextend them. If you cannot lock your elbows out, you probably should try to stretch them. If you have hypermobile elbows, keep them fully locked out unless it causes you pain, which needs to be addressed individually. One thing to note is that the elbows are an indicator of shoulder rotation. If your shoulders are internally rotated, your elbow pits will face more backwards. If they are externally rotated, they will face more forwards. Ideally, you want to have neutral to slightly externally rotated shoulders, so your elbow pits should be turned a little bit forward. One thing you do not want is internally rotated shoulders, so your elbow pits should not be facing backwards. The shoulders are one of the most important yet complicated things to get right in hand balancing, and they are the second tool you use to control your balance, after the hands. You want your shoulders as elevated as they can be. They should be placed evenly over your hands and not shifted one side or the other. On top of that, they should be flexible enough to be able to flex to 180 degrees and offer extra range on top of that. You heard me right. Just being able to bring your arm straight over your head isn't enough. Ideally, you want to be able to go further. In our standard handstand, the shoulders need to open enough for the rest of your body to be placed vertically over them. Not being able to open one's shoulders enough is a subject that we'll talk about later in this video. Another really important aspect of shoulder placement is where they are compared to your hands. You want your shoulders placed over the back of your hands, not over your fingers, not over the heels of your hands, just over the middle of the back of your hands. Placing your shoulders too far forwards make it so that you don't need as much flexibility to keep a straight body, but it also puts a lot of strain on your shoulders and make holding your handstand more difficult than it needs to be. Placing your shoulders too far backwards makes you have to open your shoulders too much, and you will likely either arch or underbalance. In any case, if your shoulders aren't placed right over the back of your hands, you will not be stacked properly. Now we have the head. The head is both important and unimportant. You should be able to do a good, well-aligned handstand with either your head out or your head in. But it is easier to balance while looking at the floor, and you should hold your head in a way that allows you to see your full hands. A very important reason for that is the use of props. At some point, you will walk on your hands, and you will have to place your hands on props using specific grips. Not being able to see your hands is not only a handicap, it can be dangerous in some situations. So for a basic handstand position, the head should be slightly out. This also helps giving you a reference point as to where your shoulders are compared to your hands. The backside of your torso should be placed vertically. That means your torso has to be properly inverted, with your ribs in and not flaring out. It might give you the impression of hunching, as you will likely feel your upper back muscles squeezing against your neck. One very important thing to note is that your chest shall not be facing the ground in the slightest, and your abdominal muscles should stay engaged so as to help locking your body into position. Your hips should be neutral, maybe with a slight posterior pelvic tilt. One thing to note is that maximal posterior pelvic tilt is unnecessary. Rather, it is better to focus on simply squeezing the glutes together. Literally, imagine someone is trying to stick their finger between your butt cheeks, and you want to guard yourself by squeezing hard. That's it really. The rest is pretty simple. Your legs should be straight and your feet pointed. Squeeze your quadriceps and your calves. And place your legs so they form a straight line with the rest of your body. For most people, finding the right alignment takes a lot of practice. A problem that can often arise is that people have to choose whether to focus on their shoulders or on their hips. To that, I invariably answer that the shoulders are more important, so if they have to pick one over another, to choose the shoulders. It doesn't mean that the handstand shouldn't be seen holistically, as changes to one part tends to affect other parts as well. To help deal with that, it is important to always try and understand the mechanics at play behind the handstand so that you are able to debug it. One very common issue people encounter is that they are unable to open the shoulders enough to find the ideal alignment in their handstand. In that case, two things need to be done. First,
embrace the banana.
Two things need to be done. First, you need to find the second best alignment and start practicing that way. Second, you need to work on your shoulders in order to gain the needed flexibility. This video is only about alignment, so right now, that's what I'm going to discuss. When one's shoulders can't open fully, a mistake that people make is to try to avoid arching and keeping a hollow position. The reason this is a mistake is that it is muscularly difficult to hold it that way, and it puts undue stress on your wrists. To top it off, it makes it more difficult to open your shoulders because they are supporting the weight of your legs. The better option is to keep your shoulders above the back of your hands and to arch slightly. Do not arch more than you need to, but try reaching up as high as you can with your feet, and try to push the ground behind your head in order to open your shoulders as much as they currently can. You can even use the weight of your legs to help you stretch your shoulders open a bit. Given that you will stretch your shoulders on their own, over time, you will become able to open your shoulders more and arch less. One thing I have not discussed in previous videos was how to do each basic exercise when your shoulders can't open enough. I only described those exercises in a perfect situation. I'm now going to rectify this. When doing a handstand facing the wall with closed shoulders, you want to focus on pushing really tall and on bringing your armpits close to the wall. During your entire sets, press your toes into the wall slightly and try to bring your lower ribs away from the wall while bringing your upper chest closer to it. Essentially, you want your torso to rotate so that your chest faces as away from the floor as it can. It's a big effort, but over time, as you stretch your shoulders, your handstand will straighten up, slowly but surely. On the handstand back to the wall, start with both legs together. That's when both legs are touching the wall that you have to do the biggest effort to extend your shoulders, and then maintain that extension afterwards. When you bring your leg away from the wall, pay close attention to not let your chest drop, or your ribs flare out more. Even when balancing, push as tall as you can and maintain the best shoulder extension you can. If you feel your chest dropping, place one leg on the wall again and fix it. Shoulder pulls back to the wall are actually a really good exercise to stretch your shoulders. That is, if you do it properly. Whenever you shift your shoulders away from the wall, your shoulders should be opening more, or at the very least, they shouldn't close. Pay attention to that point. If your shoulders ever close as you shift them away from the wall while doing a shoulder pull back to the wall, it means that you're shifting your weight using your midsection rather than your shoulders. Instead, make sure that your midsection stays as far over your head as it can be, and focus on feeling your shoulders stretching. The start of the shoulder pull facing the wall shouldn't be a problem for someone with tight shoulders. But the last part will be, as you will not able to lead the movement with your back. Instead, you will have to lead more with your heels. For the moment being, that is acceptable, but make sure that whenever you finish in the handstand position, you do so with your shoulders as open as possible. The kick-up will have a similar ending as the shoulder pull facing the wall. Beyond a certain point, you will not be able to bring your back further over your head, and will have to lead with your heels past your center line. That is okay for the time being, as long as you keep doing your best to open your shoulders. As you can see, you can still learn handstands if your shoulders don't open fully. You only need to use a slightly different posture and focus on doing things a little bit differently until your shoulders can open more. Once that is the case, you will become able to do a straight, well-aligned handstand. One last thing, take the alignment seriously, but not to the point of not being able to balance. It is much better to be able to balance imperfectly than not being able to balance at all. Emphasize each aspect in alternance when you practice.
This concludes our video. I hope it was helpful. Let me know if you have questions or comments, and stay balanced. See you next time.